Hi there. I'm Miss Ungerer, or as my students call me, Miss U. And for those of you wondering, you know, what are some, my kid really wants to read some scary books, but I don't want them to have nightmares. What is something that's appropriate for their age? And I would like to introduce to you Mary Downing Hahn. Mary Downing Hahn she writes stories that are suspenseful but not too scary for, I would say, upper elementary through middle school. The book that I just recently finished is called Took. Now, I read this, I've been waiting to read it for a while, just waiting for someone to read it with. And just before we broke down for these snow days that we've had over the last 3 days, one of my students said, Miss Yu, can you recommend a suspense story for me? I really want to read something scary. I said, okay, let's read this book together. It's called Took. So the story opens with an old mountain lady chanting and waving her hands and saying things like, uh, old for new, pretty for ugly, strong for weak. You'll do. Yes, you'll do nicely. And then she says, Erica, Erica. And all of her words drift on the wind into the ears of the family who's buying this mountain farm in Woodville, West Virginia. Well, the story unfolds with the new family moving from Connecticut. The parents have lost their jobs and they are downsizing. They're moving someplace that they can afford to provide for their family and just kind of get back to basics. Now, for any of you who remember the early 2000s, at the time I was living in North Carolina, and we had a lot of New England people move down to North Carolina because they said land is so much more affordable here, and we want to get just back to basics of living and family. So that was one thing that kind of pulled me right into the story right away. They also talk about Erica and her little doll that looks just like her with the same hair and eye color, even the same little outfits. And if any of you are old enough to remember the American dolls, I think they even had a factory down in Georgia that you could go and you can custom make your own American doll just for you. They had them as girls, as boys. So again, another thing that ties me to this book because I remember these things. All right, on with the story. As the family's getting settled in, the kids go to school, and there's a kid on the bus that lives near them. He's like, leans over the bus seat. Hey, y'all live on that old Estes property, don't ya? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. He's like, you know, there's a girl, she got taken by Auntie, and no one ever ain't found her ever again. Auntie comes and takes kids every 50 years. He's like, shut up, you're scaring my kid sister. And the little girl's clutching tightly to her doll. He goes, you just watch out. Watch out for old Auntie and bloody bones. So they get off the bus, and the bus driver's like, don't you listen to that kid. He's just mean, and he's just giving you a hard time. Well, the boy, as he's walking to the house, he's like, he can feel something watching them. And he looks across the tree line and he swears he sees something like a shadowy figure. And he just dismisses it like his mind's playing tricks on him. And his little girl's saying, Daniel, I don't like it here. I want to go home. Well, as time goes on, the little girl who absolutely hates going outside into the forest, starts going off in the forest by herself. And the brother's like, what? Why is she going? Where is she going? So he finds her in a clearing, sitting on a tree stump, talking to the forest, or she's talking to somebody who's standing on the edge of the forest, but he doesn't see anybody. He just feels like there's something there. And as he's watching her, she gets up and she starts walking to the edge of the forest with her little doll. And he's like, oh my gosh. So he drops what he's doing. I think he has his blockers and he drops it. So he goes running after her. Excuse me. He goes running after her and he grabs her and yanks her. Well, she drops her doll and he's dragging her kicking and screaming back to the house. He's like, my dolly, my dolly. And he's like, you can't, we're not going back there. There's something really bad over there. Well, they get home. The parents are like, what's the matter? He's like, she lost her doll. And they're like, well, we can't go back and find it now. So they wait till the next day. Well, the next day, the little sister goes there and um, she disappears into the woods and he can't find her. So he comes home, he tells the parents, look, she's gone. And they're all upset with him. So they call in a search party and everybody's looking. And after several hours, this strange girl, they find this girl. She's filthy. She's got, messy hair and she's just disgusting. And she's speaking, listen to me, in old words. And they're saying, what is your name? She goes, girl. It's just a girl. Where's Auntie? I want to go back to Auntie's cabin. She's the onlyest home I know. They're like, honey, where do you live? She goes, I told you. I live with Auntie on the cabin up at the top of that Brewster's Mountain. And she's quite a character. And as she comes into the scene, everybody that's helping with the search party is saying, they're looking at each other. And they said, okay, well, we're going to go home now. There's really nothing we can do. Your daughter's gone. Auntie's got her. And the family's going, what? Who is this Auntie? And Daniel's going, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. So, um, spoiler alert, there is a happy ending. Um, and again, there are a couple of other characters that are very key that haven't even been introduced into our story yet. But if you like some good old fashioned storytelling and getting a little bit of a chill up your spine, this is a really great read. And I highly recommend Mary Downing Hahn. One other book, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. The Ghost of Crutchfield Hall. This takes place, I don't know, 19th, 18th century England. There's a little girl, and her parents are gone. She lives in an orphanage. So one day, they're notified that she has a very, very wealthy great uncle, and she has a cousin about her age that they could live with, in a grand estate. So she goes off to the to the grand estate, and she gets there, and she's met by the great aunt, who looks down her skinny nose very severely at her. And she's not a very warm, welcoming person. And then the great uncle comes and he's all jolly and happy. And he's like, hey, it's so good to meet you. And kind of don't worry about your great aunt. She'll warm up to you. It's just that you look very much like your cousin who died several years ago. And that's the cousin. So there's a haunting in this book. Well, she goes out looking for her cousin. She's like, well, where's my cousin? I was told I had a cousin that's alive here. And the great uncle goes, well, yeah, but he's really sick. He hasn't been the same since his sister died. Well, the little girl goes snooping and she finds her sick cousin. And he goes, shut the door, shut the door. She'll hear you. So this is a great story. It's not as long as Took, and I don't think that this is as scary as Took. So I might want to start off with The Ghost of Crutchfield Hall. The two cousins do form a friendship, and they're able to help this ghost a little bit by the end of the story. So if you were looking for something that you could introduce your children to, that's a little bit of scary suspense fiction, I definitely recommend Mary Downing Hahn. She's my favorite little kid suspense person. Um, it's a different. I know a long time ago people liked the Goosebumps series by R.L. Stine, which those are good, but this really feels real. There's no monsters or stuff. It's just, well, read and find out for yourselves. I miss you, and until the next time, I hope you enjoy reading with someone and share a good tale or two. Bye bye for now.